It is 7 o'clock. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the City of Burnside Council on this October the 11th, 2022, opening at 7 p.m. Welcome to those in the gallery and those who are watching from home. Please come forward, sir, and take a seat in here. Please stand and remain silent during the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who sacrifice their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all those who today are being affected by war in 52 places around the globe, especially those people in Ukraine. Finally, we seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. We have a relatively short agenda for tonight's meeting, and since we are in caretaker mode, mask wearing is optional. Please remain respectful and patient during the debates to allow everyone to be heard and use the auto cue when you wish to speak. Use your microphone while speaking, but switch it off when you finish. Last but not least, could you please make sure your mobile phone is placed on silent or turned off so that the debate is not disturbed. We have no apologies, we have no leave of absence. Is there anyone who wishes to declare a matter of interest for any of the agenda items tonight? No, then we will move on. Confirmation of minutes. I seek a mover. Councillor Davey, you wish to move it? And a seconder is, in future can we use the, so technically, Councillor Cornish, you're moving it, and I don't have a seconder as yet. Now I do. Councillor Hubel is the seconder. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Carried. No adjourned business, no public question time. We have no presentations, but we do have 2 deputations that I informed you of earlier today. And we have Mr. Godfrey first. But before I do welcome the 2 deputies, I just need to make this statement that before we hear these deputations, I wish to inform all present, including those people who are making the deputations tonight, that the Council has previously received correspondence raising these concerns about disability access to this shopping centre, and Council has raised this issue with the landowner. The landowner understands the issue but is of the view that the existing access provisions for the shopping centre are adequate. There are no legislative mechanisms available to the Council to insist on a ramp or other changes to improve access to the shopping centre. And I just needed to make that clear to everybody in the room before we start. Now, that doesn't prevent, of course, Mr. Godfrey from coming forward and making a deputation. If you can just mention your name again and what suburb, you don't have to give your address, just your suburb, and that's it, turn the microphone on.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Martin Godfrey. I've been a long-term resident of Kensington Park. I'd like to show you in these photos that you should all have a handout to show some of the issues that I and others with mobility issues face when trying to access the Merrickville shopping centre. To access the shopping centre, so if you look at the first photo, to access the shopping centre from the north, one crosses the pedestrian crossing on Kensington Road as shown, and the main entrance to the shopping centre is on the right just by the lights. If we go to the second photo, this is the view from the main entrance at the north, clearly unsuitable for myself and others with mobility issues. It would have been a simple matter to have included a ramp on the vegetable border on the left, rising from near the pedestrian crossing to the top of these steps in that photo. If you go to the next photo, please. When Woolworths opened in December 2004, there was no accessible path into the centre from the north. My partner spoke with the manager of Woolworths at the time about this, and shortly after, the corner was adapted to provide this access, shown in that photo 3. If you go to photo 4, this is the view that one sees from the top of that area. People with mobility issues, such as wheelchair users, mobility scooters, walking frames, have to go from where the photo is taken, negotiate across the car park to the nearest curb cut, which is just in front of that white car. If you go to photo 5, this is typically what one faces when trying to negotiate that route. You've got traffic coming from your immediate right, you've got cars coming up that ramp from the underground car park, and you've also got cars coming from the right where that red car is. On the left, you've got people coming out and reversing on you. If we go to the next one, if you go to the Tasmore Avenue entrance, the situation is not much better. There is a step change at the threshold, and there is a sign in the way of the path of travel. So if you go to the final one, 7, it would have been fairly easy to have included a ramped access to the centre from the north by having a ramp going from just to the left of where that pedestrian crossing is, up to the height of the steps in the photo, which would be the main entrance. The council, Burnside Access and Inclusion Plan states that the council will advocate for people living with a disability to ensure that they have the same opportunities of access as those without a disability. From my perspective, the shopping centre was non-compliant when it was built and is still non-compliant. How long do people with mobility issues, such as myself, have to wait before we can enjoy the same opportunities and access as those without a disability? Thank you, that's all I've got to say.
Right, is there anyone who wishes to ask a question? Councillor Piggott.
She's got the floor. Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming in. I'd just like to understand, what is the perfect solution in your, if I understand rightly, you talk about the ramp on the northern boundary. Does that still give you the issue, though, you've got to negotiate the car park to get...
Under the Disability Discrimination Act, you're not to discriminate on the ground. And so the preferred approach is always to go in through the main entrance as everybody else. It would be from the top of those steps. There is a walkway across the top of that car park, if you can just see in the, I think the second photo, across, but it's straight across. And there are some barriers that prevent, cars reversing into you. So there's 2 bits that you have to go across, but there, in a way, in that situation, you face the same safety issues as other people.
Right.
So there's equity. At the moment, it's a less safe, you're forced into a less safe route, so there's some discrimination.
Understand. And if you bear with me just a little bit longer, so on Tasmore Avenue, the issues are different and relatively easily solved.
They would be, yes.
That,
Yes.
There's not a step and
Yes.
the sign is moved.
Yes.
Is that fit? Right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Cheers.
Thanks.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming along tonight, Martin. Thank you very much for your outline of the history of which is about 18 years old, 20 years old. Have the recent improvements, they did some work to put a tick and collect parking centre in and some more pavement markings, and I think removed some of those islands, traffic islands and median strips that had got really battered and damaged. Has that all improved the situation in the centre?
No, unfortunately for myself, it still means I have to negotiate across the car park and still face those safety issues with the traffic coming from all directions.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. I see that the Merrickville shopping centre's on the boundary of Burnside Council, the City of Burnside and Norwood. And my question is, has the City of Norwood, St Peter's, been helpful, or have they been approached as well?
I haven't approached them directly as regards this because I'm not too certain precisely where the boundary lies between Burnside and Norwood.
On my map, it's right through the middle of the shopping centre. So it's almost like where your ramp is could be the boundary between the two councils.
Right.
It being so close with this other council,
Yes.
my question was about, engaging with both councils, perhaps.
Can I just answer that one in that it is the entire shopping centre is within the boundary of Burnside. The little side street runs along. Norwood, Payneham, St Peters objected to that exit from occurring because they didn't want people coming out of that street to add to a traffic nuisance. And that's the reason why, although there's a big gate opening there, there's no exit out of that side street at the western side of the shopping centre. But that shopping centre is all in Burnside.
They didn't want people from the City of Burnside.
Sorry?
The City of Norwood.
It is all within the City of Burnside. However, it is all private. It is all private property. It is not council land.
So it's
Right.
very much our problem, is what you're confirming.
Sorry?
It's very much our problem. This gentleman's in the
Well,
right
no,
place
it is the problem of the shopping centre who own the land.
but this gentleman's in the
But
right
yes, of course, it is
right
our.
council's own.
If they're going to appeal to any council, it is ours. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for your deputation this evening. This is my local shopping centre, and being an able-bodied person, this is a very difficult car park to manoeuvre, so I appreciate the difficulty that you would have. I guess one of the questions that I have is, the last time that you spoke to the shopping centre and they obviously came on board and made some changes, I guess, is there anything different that was done then compared to now, I guess, in terms of the approach and why they were willing to make changes previously but may not be now?
I, as a member of the public, have very little voice to actually change anything at the shopping centre, unfortunately, which is why I'm approaching you, the council, to actually advocate on behalf of members of the community in accordance with the Access and Disability Inclusion Plan.
No, thank you. I appreciate you coming in.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you for coming, Martin. So, who is responsible for enforcing the Disability Discrimination Act?
I think it's the Human Rights Commission.
So,
But I'm not too certain on that one. I'm not a legal person.
right, because you've obviously said you think it's a breach of the DDA. So have you approached the Human Rights Commission, or are you suggesting that council should, because it would have more weight?
I'm suggesting, rather than trying all that legalistic approach of some negotiation and advocation on behalf of the council, to actually see where they could actually improve access to the facilities there.
Okay, but they have said they're not going to do anything, and it's been like that for 20 years. Does there come a time when enough's enough?
Yes, we'll get to that. But in a way, I have taken cases up to the Human Rights and Equal Opportunities Commission before, but unfortunately, they don't seem to have resulted in anything, and it's a lot of hard work as an individual to do that.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in, very interesting. My question is, and please forgive me because I've been out of the loop for a while, but do we still have a disability advocate in state government, or an organisation that advocates on behalf of disabled people? I'm pretty sure we used to have. I know we did have in the past.
I'm not too certain the answer to that one, I'm afraid.
The reason I say that is that when you've got a group advocating for a big group, often they have the capacity to really hit home in many ways. I mean, we are talking about Woolworths here, and you wouldn't want Woolworths to be branded as uncaring. And advocacy groups often are able to do that. They are able to advocate on behalf of a group of people, whoever they may be, and get a shame response from the organisation to whom they're advocating. And I'm just wondering whether that might be something worth exploring in the future.
It might be something worthwhile exploring, but the reason I'm approaching Burnside Council is for Burnside Council to actually advocate on behalf of its own community, because it's that particular shopping centre that the issue is. I can't make any comment about other shopping centres that may be owned by Woolworths.
And this one's actually not owned by Woolworths.
Oh, right, okay.
The CEO.
Well, Madam Mayor, I might just get Mr Cooper just to give us a little summary of his interactions with Woolworths and the owner of the site. That might be helpful.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, as Mr Cowley has indicated, Council has for over a year now had attempted to open some dialogue with the centre management to address the concerns, the valid concerns that have been raised. We indeed have been out to the location and totally understand all of the issues in terms of access to the shops and the inequity that there is at the moment. We have been working with Councillor Davey as well, and have approached Taplins, the management centre, to highlight these issues on a couple of occasions, and we have been left in no uncertain terms that the view is that the site meets all of the building regulations, the codes that are laid down, and they do not feel that it is required to take any other action. We did even go so far as to say that we were going to write to the Human Rights Commission, and again that had no impact on them at all. So unfortunately, I feel from an administration point of view, we have exhausted everything we can. It's their location. They comply with the access rules, the building rules that were applicable 20 years ago and are still applicable today. Yeah, we've drawn a blank, unfortunately.
Councillor.
Thank you. I have another question, if I may. I'm just wondering if, having heard all of this, and I thank Mr Cooper for his illumination and information, whether the safe work health and safety legislation might have an impact on this. Do you think that would be worth attempting?
It may be
know that?
Yeah, it may be worthwhile pursuing, because people seem to take occupational health and safety issues far higher than disability access issues, and the route that somebody with a mobility issue is forced to take across that car park is a much less safe route.
Right, I have no further people wishing to ask questions. Councillor Henschke.
If you don't mind. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for the administration, please. I note that
I think it's more appropriate. These questions are supposed to be directed at the deputy.
Okay.
That question can hold until we are having the debate later.
Thank you. So can I ask a question of the deputy then? Yeah. The picture you took of number 3, it says ramped entrance at base of phone tower. Is that, was that ramped access constructed in the last 20 years?
No, that was constructed shortly after Woolworths opened,
yes.
Within weeks of Woolworths opening, and it was a result of my partner speaking to the manager of Woolworths.
And roughly what year would that
2004.
2004.
So it was beginning between the start of December 2004 and the end of December. So it was fairly quickly that got put in, but originally was not part of the plans, which I suppose would have been approved, because there was no access at all in the original, as it was originally built.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr Godfrey. I'll just give Mr Godfrey some time, and then we have Mr Ian Beadmore, who Matt is just organising a chair for you. And I didn't have a chance to speak to you before, Mr Beadmore, but you have 5 minutes with a warning bell at 4 minutes. if you could just restate your name and what suburb you live in before you start speaking. Thank you.
My name is Ian Beardmore and I live in Kensington Park. Have done so for 23 years. I'm here this evening on behalf of my wife Dorothy and myself to ask for your help to expedite a process which may lead to the provision of a safer route to and from the Merrickville shopping centre for persons who need walking aids and or a wheelchair or any other walking aids. My wife is marginally ambulant, requiring a wheelchair and the use of a walker. I need the steadying influence of a walking stick. Now, as I see it, there are currently two choices for those people who are not fully ambulant to access the shopping centre. They either have to walk around most of the perimeter of the centre car park or use the small concrete ramp situated near the corner of the Tusmore Avenue Kensington Road intersection. Both routes are subject to hazardous situations in the form of moving motor vehicles. The site of a safer route is to the entry doors of the shopping centre could be located near or at the site of the northern entry steps, which are located a few metres west of the Kensington Road traffic lights. This site provides a straight line of entry to the main doors of the shopping centre, and it happens to be 4 times shorter than the long way round. Over the past few years, I have tried to progress the need for the inclusion of a safety ramp near the northern steps. Amongst other things, I have submitted a rough sketch to the planning department here at the Burnside Council. I have written to the Woolworths management twice. I've had a brief conversation with a Woolworths official and sought help from Councillor Jane Davey. Now, Councillor Davey took an immediate interest in what I was trying to achieve. And I'm assuming that during the period Councillor Davey was developing ideas and methods to assist progressing my aim, I received a telephone call from a Woolworths Merrickville team leader advising me Taplins were the owners of the buildings and Aramis were the site managers. I contacted both parties, leading to Aramis passing on my concerns to the landlord, but he didn't really consider that the landlord would agree to build a ramp. And as I understand it, he was right. My most recent letter to the Mayor, thank you, was promptly addressed, replied to. Now, you all know that, you know, there's that legal barrier that we've got to face, and there's not much we can do about that, at least from my point of view. It's very difficult. But, you know, I think that, you know, the Human Rights Commission, which you asked me or suggested that I contact, you weren't sure what could happen. Well, I contacted them, and I was surprised to learn that there was an 8 to 18 month lag time between attending to that particular complaint. The Burnside Council does recognise its responsibility to support people with disabilities to access the safe human rights as everyone else in the community. It is surely a human right to gain safe access to the Merrickville shopping centre. I believe the motion tabled by Councillor Davey is objective and provides fair pathways to progress ideas which may result in a safety ramp being built. Please support Councillor Davies' motion, please. Thank you for time.
Thank you. If you'd just remain there in case anyone has any questions to ask of you. Is there anyone who has any questions?
I can't hear that well, but you can try.
Councillor Henschke.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Mr Beardmore. Mr Beardmore,
Who's talking?
I'm over here, Lillian Henschke, just on this side.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
These
No,
things.
that's fine. Thank you, Mr Beardmore.
Yes.
The ramp that you've thought about the concept for, do you think the ramp would be on council land or half on council land and half on the private landowner?
I'm not sure exactly. Now, does the council land end at the fringes of the car park? In other words, the garden area, whose land's that?
Yeah.
Theirs.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so that belongs to the site. So where does the site end then? Where the pavement is? And that's council land, is it? Okay. Well, I think that the ramp, ideally, would probably have to be curved and long because of the height problem. And I think either side you would need to place it. So therefore, the ramp would go on. Oh, blast. Would you believe it? I thought I'd turn my... Will you excuse me? I'm awfully sorry. No, I've forgotten where it is. Good Lord. Yow.
I think while you're fixing your phone,
It's all right.
you're right about...
Shut it off.
It's very steep there, and it would not be able to build a straight-up ramp. It would
No,
have
that's
to
right.
go
I realise that.
zigzag or some other way.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious right from the very word go that the only way that could be built was a long and a curved ramp. I'm not an engineer, you wouldn't trust me with doing that, but it can be built. I've seen others built a lot harder than that. But so it would encroach upon their land, which is fine. It could not, I think it could be built entirely on their land, on the land that, that Taplins and the landowner owns. So I don't think it would encroach upon the pavement whatsoever. But I am not an engineer. They wouldn't trust me with a pencil. So you would have to get good advice on that.
Thank you very much.
That's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ian, for coming along tonight.
Hey.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to turn off.
Power off. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay. It's easy to do. As I said, thank you very much for coming along tonight on behalf of you and your wife. You're talking about, when do you access the shopping centre mainly? Do you access it from the Kensington Road side?
Yeah, from the
crossing?
Kensington Road, always from the Kensington Road. I live in Kensington Park, which is on that side. So to get there, I have to walk down Kensington Road towards the city, go across the crossing, and there's the steps almost in front of you. I can't use, well, I do use those. I can use it with a stick, but there's a lot of people that can't, of course, that are, unfortunately, are not able to in many ways. And it's probably going to be a growing problem. We do have what was it, 4%, I think, of the population you said is disabled in some way, the analysts. Well, how many in Kensington on that side and probably the east, I have no idea. It would be a relatively small number, I suppose, but that ramp would be available for everybody and would be used by everybody, because those steps are dangerous. You know, people do fall down steps. The biggest problem with older people that I'm told for breaking bones, etc., is falling, and steps certainly don't help.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, dear.
Hello, Mr Beardmore. Thank you for coming in tonight. Did you know that in South Australia we have a disability advocacy and complaints service? I've taken the liberty to find the website. I've taken the liberty to write their phone number down because advocacy is one of the things they do. So I'd be very happy to give this to you.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think these are the people that will help you a lot more than we can.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will accept that. Thank you very much. I spend a lot of time, fortunately, I have a wife who does need a fair bit of attention. And as a husband, it's my job to do that. So I do spend a lot of time looking after her. And my daughter, God bless her, she's a great help to us. And, I got here today through I would have been brought by Jane, but I was helped out there. So we have a pretty busy household.
Councillor Davey, you have a last question?
Thank you.
Just one last question. Just about the Human Rights Commission, because I haven't actually spoken to them. Did you find that they were receptive to a complaint and felt that it would be worthwhile in spite of the long wait time?
Well, I did ask them to, irrespective, I did ask them to send the forms to me, but I said, I balked at filling them in when I thought about it. I thought, well, if we're going to be waiting 8 to 18 months, more like 18 months, I suspect, because they've got budget cuts, apparently, or some other reason, we're just not going to be looked at. I mean, it's obviously a priority thing with them, the same as it is with you people. To be honest with you, it wasn't encouraging. I don't think I was encouraged to go on with it personally, but that's my gut feeling,
Thank you very much, Mr Beamore, for coming in.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Save your question for later in the debate. Right. There'll be plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. Okay. I think they've given us all the information.
Curses, I'll kill them. It's my fault. I should have turned it off.
I am going to ask the council if you wish to move that particular motion forward. If that's the desire of this meeting, then we can move straight to that particular motion on notice and deal with it whilst the deputies are here. So if I can get a mover, please.
I've already pushed my button.
Sorry, Councillor Davey, yes, you already
Happy to
moved, and seconded by Councillor Henschke. Right, all those in favour to move the motion forward? Right, all those against? Okay, all right, then that is considered. So we will consider the matter now rather than leaving it until later in the meeting, which means then you'll be able to go home rather than waiting around, okay? We'll move to 12 point... Sorry. No, it's 12.1. Burnside Disability Access and... Oh, sorry, no, that's the inclusion plan. 13.1, you're on, right. 13.1, Disability Access and Egress, page 106. And Councillor Davey, you wish to speak first?
If I may, Madam Mayor, and I'm just observing that point 2 of the motion, I don't believe is phrased as a decision of council. I think it might have been a bit of commentary.
Can I have a
that's come
chance
through.
to fix it, please? Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to move. I've had feedback, and so I take that on board. So I will modify the motion. I move 1, that the administration, in accordance with Council's Disability Access and Inclusion Plan of 2020-2024, negotiate, advocate and work with the owner, proprietors, managers of the Merrickville Shopping Centre, 244 to 246 Kensington Road, Leabrook, to improve disability access and egress from the Kensington Road footpath, particularly near the pedestrian activated crossing on Kensington Road, separately from that for vehicular traffic, to ensure the safety of persons using walking frames, wheelchairs, gophers, prams and other mobility aids while entering and proceeding through the car park area to use the services and facilities within the centre. Delete 2, and that 3 now becomes 2, and that a standalone report which provides progress with what safe disability access and egress has been negotiated and is being achieved at this site be brought to Council by end of February 2023. I'm just thinking I might include negotiate with the owners and the Human Rights Commission. So could I add, negotiate, advocate and work with the owners after the Merrickville Shopping Centre, Leabrook, put a comma, thank you, in the fourth line, comma. After Leabrook. And the Human Rights Commission. So that will broadens that aspect. So thank you for taking on board what we've heard tonight. So we've heard tonight from 2 community members having difficulty accessing the Merrickville Shopping Centre. This is a popular, highly utilised community asset with a range of shops, including a chemist, coffee shop, supermarket, a whole lot of shops that people want to access. The centre is approximately 18 years old, has recently had some work undertaken on its car park area to install click and collect parking, which is what's happening everywhere, 2-hour parking limits because of the long-term parking that I think has been taking place there, remove the damaged raised pedestrian walkways, which have got significantly damaged and were a real tripping hazard, and to replace pavement markings accordingly. The whole shopping centre is experiencing growth and increased intensity of use. I believe that when it was built, it should have complied with the Disability Discrimination Act of 1992 to ensure safe pedestrian ramp access and egress for those using prams, walkers, gophers and wheelchairs entering from Kensington Road. To expect such people to use a different, less safe entrance some distance away on Tusmore Avenue, which involves competing with 2 streams of volumes of cars turning left and right, along with 2 streams entering the centre, is not reasonable, safe or equitable. I think the recent car park upgrade was an opportunity to advocate to upgrade this deficiency with the shopping centre owners. Council has the capacity, and I understand the negotiations that they have already undertaken, but as both our planning authority as well as in the advocacy role we have in our Community Access, Inclusion and Participation Policy of 2022, which states that Council will build on its relationships with local service providers, community organisations and the wider community to ensure access and inclusion is a focus across the Council area. As a prominent voice in the local community and beyond, Council will endeavour to advocate for people living with disability. So that's a direct quote from our policy, to ensure that they have the same opportunities and access as every community member. Also, our Burnside Disability Access and Inclusion Plan of 2020-2024 has been written and adopted with a vision of a resilient, happy, healthy and connected community, and describes an advocacy role and partnership with business and organisations, connection with our community and activation of public spaces. I think this covers having a fully accessible shopping centre in the midst of our community. We all need to shop, visit the chemist, have a coffee with friends, and those with disability or reduced mobility have greater challenges to access these services. This is not council property, but a fully commercial area, and I would think it's surely good business practice to enable as many customers as possible to access what you're selling. Thank you. So I seek your support for this motion.
I need a seconder, please. Councillor Henschke.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I wish to second this and happy to speak now. I support this motion. There are precedents interstate. I quote from the City of Parramatta Council, recently upgraded the streetscape of the Chisholm Shopping Centre in Winston Hills, New South Wales as part of revitalisation of the streetscape, included the construction of a new reinforced polymer fiberglass disability access ramp to improve accessibility, safety and provide equal opportunity to the community. So the technology is there. Councils do this for private enterprises. I'm sure there's probably some, it's not exactly the same as the Merrickville Shopping Centre, but it is doable, and I totally support this and I look forward to the revitalisation of the precinct as part of the master plan work. So thank you. I'd like to say thank you to the community. I think they've done a great job in helping lots of others.
Me, yes, I'll speak. I'd like to know whether Parramatta actually was building on its own land or the land of private enterprise, because it's all very well to quote that without giving us that information. I'd be very surprised if it was on private enterprise land. While I was listening to this, I was horrified that there was nowhere else to go except the Human Rights Commission. And I note that the Human Rights Commission is also in the motion. In South Australia, we actually have a Disability, Advocacy, Complaints and Services SA. And I would think that if we're going to write to anyone, these are the people we should be writing to. It's all very well to say, we're going to go to human rights. I've given Mr Beardmore the contact details for this. It's all very well to say we'll go to human rights and wait 18 months while people that are being tortured in other countries are waiting as well. But this is a local state advocacy for people with disabilities that offers advocacy and complaint service. So I think that if we're going to write to anyone, I would suggest we write to them. We can write to the Human Rights Commission as well, but this particular organisation is, I believe, part of our state government and is tasked, I would imagine, with these sorts of matters. Now, as a government service, it's still not going to be able to make private enterprise build infrastructure if they choose not to do it. But it can do what I said earlier on. It can shame them. And I think that we ought to be approaching these people to see what can be done. We could write to the owners again. I would expect that we'll get the same response that we did last time. But I really sympathise with people that have mobility issues and can't use stairs. I totally sympathise. And I think that we should support you in every way we can in terms of you going to the associations and the advocacy groups that can make a lot of noise on your behalf, much more noise than us as a local government service can make.
Councillor Piggott.
I could have a question to start. The way that the motion runs, would that involve contacting Woolworths at a level beyond the local level, perhaps a state manager or a national manager? Would you see the motion asking you to do that?
Yeah, certainly. Through Madam Mayor, should this get up, look, I can clearly see Council's intent here. So I'll cast a very broad net. In fact, I'll research more organisations if I can, and I'm happy to approach the higher echelons at Woolworths and also the management company as well. I'll try and go as high as I can there. So I'm certainly happy to do that without need for changing the motion.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a mind actually to do an amendment along those lines, but if you're take you at the word on that, you think I should? All right. Well, perhaps I will. Always like an amendment. I've got only a few weeks to go.
A well-crafted amendment always goes down very well.
Could I, so that it would be along the lines of that administration, so it would go in as number 2, bumping 2 to number 3, and it would say that administration work with the appropriate SA government bodies and contact, I can say government advocacy bodies. Can I say? Let's get it out there and I'll let you throw it around if you like. The administration work with the relevant government and advocacy bodies and contact senior management of Woolworths at a state or national level in respect to this matter. In respect to this matter, continue on. Rounds it out, I think. So if I could speak to that amendment.
I'm happy to accept that, Madam Mayor.
So it's not going to be an amendment, it's just you'll accept this as an addition to the motion.
Seconder?
As long as the...
As the seconder, happy with that, that's Lillian.
Stole me a mention in the minutes, but I guess I'll live with it.
Oh, sorry.
I will take the opportunity to speak to it, though, if I may. Look, I think it is right to put it in there. Look, I think it is right. The deputies came to the right place. Now, we may not be any more successful than you've been. I think that's fair, and we have been trying already by the sounds. It strikes me, actually, the spot to hit is Woolworths. And perhaps if we are unsuccessful, next time contact the current affair or something like that. Because I think Woolworths is the strength in this argument. And it could be, I'm getting looks from administration, we've already been here perhaps, but I would hope an organisation like Woolworths, particularly if they actually had a deputation or two deputations like we had tonight, would actually be pretty unhappy about having their store in this situation. So I do think, you know, maybe rose-coloured glasses, but I do think it's certainly something that needs to be sorted. It's frustrating, actually, that the owners of the land can't see that and actually do it based on what's happened so far. Is it something we can do much about? Maybe not, but I think it is something that a local council and City of Burnside particularly, the way we think and operate, I think we should put our weight seriously behind this argument and push all the buttons available to us. My only concern is that perhaps the buttons have already been pushed. But let's push them again. I do think that it is worthy of this council stepping in respect to this issue and seeking to sort it out. Interestingly, the Councillor Henschke raised the fact of whether it was on our land or whether it's not on our land. I felt where she was going might have been that perhaps there is a solution that does involve our land, that the ramp might need some of might need some of our land to make that happen, and I suspect this chamber would very much support that if that was all that held up the solution. I've got way ahead of myself, but I do think it is right. You're right to come and see us. Councillor Davies is right to raise the motion. I think we throw everything at it, at all of those bodies, and because the right thing to do is actually to fix it. I'll support it. Thanks.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for administration, and it's about the caretaker period, I have to say. But can administration advise, has any other candidate for the Kensington ward raised this issue with administration?
Through Madam Mayor, not to my knowledge.
Not to my knowledge, okay. I will now speak. If this motion was outside of caretaker period, I would fully support it wholeheartedly. Mr Beardmore mentioned Councillor Davies' name.
Sorry.
And I recognise that.
Sorry, councillor Dawes, just, it might be a slight correction, misunderstanding.
Sorry, did you ask whether it was a councillor or a candidate?
Candidate.
Candidate. I must apologise. I've actually had it raised by one candidate.
Can I ask what advice was given to that candidate?
The advice that was given was the same advice that the Mayor shared at the start of the deputation period.
Okay, thank you. And this is very difficult for me. But Mr Beardmore mentioned Councillor Davies' name, and if it wasn't for Councillor Davies, this wouldn't be before us tonight. I think that's what he was trying to say. And I fully support what you guys were saying tonight, and I thank you for coming. But there have been issues that have been put before me in my ward, and we have not raised them over this 2-month period. The ballot papers come out on Friday, and I'm just worried that we have, by considering this tonight, may have given an electoral advantage. So I just feel torn by this tonight, because I think that this could be raised at the new council and it will get 100% support, no question of it. And I know it's part of the Merrickville Master Plan, there's a lot of work to be done, mention of time taken to get to various advocacy groups, but I think to do it now today is not the right move. This is my personal opinion. And if a division is called tonight, if I vote against this tonight, and if a division is called, I will leave this council chair, because I don't want to be seen as voting against it, because it will appear in the minutes as I voted against it, because I am for it. I can leave the meeting. Can I get a ruling on that, please?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, you were seeking a ruling on
Yes,
that
I'm
thought.
seeking a ruling.
If I can refer
Because
that,
I've seen people walk out of here before.
if I can just refer that to Ms Reynolds.
Through the chair, Councillor Dawes is right in that he can leave the room, or even if he stands and is not seated, his vote will not be counted, according to the meeting procedures.
He has the right to do that, and this right has been used in my 12 years of council before. Councillor Dawes, you're finished speaking?
Yes, so my issue is not what was raised tonight. I'm in full support. My issue is the timing of this particular motion.
Councillor Cornish?
Thank you, Worship. I wasn't quite ready for that. I saw another flashing light next to me and thought someone else had the call. I will be supporting this motion. I thank the CEO's acceptance of some other advocacy bodies, which I've emailed you a link to at least 3 of them. And I did have a question of administration, if I could. It's in regards to that photograph, number 6. How easy would it be for us to actually lift off pavers on the footpath so that there's actually not a lip? So a wheelchair and a pram can just roll straight up onto that. Like that is in our control, the footpath, and we just need to lift it up half a brick. I know there might be a bit of an issue, but, you know, and there's the sign, but, you know, if the other thing wasn't in the way, it might be, but I just thought that might be another little quick fix, and I just wondered if that's a possibility or a consideration.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the best approach would be for us to explore that during this little period that we're going to take, and then I can actually bring that back as part of the third part of that report.
Brilliant, thank you.
Councillor Hubel?
Thank you, Worship, and Nina Marnie, greet you all this evening. A question at this point to administration. I was quite interested in hearing some commentary from you with regards to Councillor Dawes's issue that he raised in terms of caretaker period and I guess propriety of this motion, given that we are in election cycle. So yeah, just curious about what you think about that.
Oh, okay. Through Madam Mayor, the Act doesn't preclude the council from continuing to conduct its business. And one could argue that this is council conducting its business. Having said that, I think the onus is then on the individual elected members to make sure they are delivering council business without electioneering. The onus goes back onto the council laws, how they conduct themselves. But technically, this is council doing its business, this matter. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes.
I was going to ask Councillor Hibble's question as well, but you've answered that. So I will speak. I think perhaps Councillor Dawes has raised something that's dancing a fine line, but like my personal view is that given that we have community members here who have been raising this issue for a significant amount of time, and this actually could take months and months and months to resolve or perhaps get any answers, I don't have an issue with supporting it. I don't disagree that perhaps the timing is not ideal, but I think the sooner that we can get some of these conversations happening, the better for our community. But I did also want to acknowledge the staff, because a lot of work has already happened in this space, and a lot of conversations have already happened, as I guess is documented in the CEO's comment. So I think if there are more things that we can do, then yes, we can work as an advocate on behalf of these community members. But I think there has also, it's worth acknowledging that there has been work in this space when this issue has been raised. But yes, could we do more? Quite possibly. So I'm happy to support the additional work here that has been suggested by Councillor Piggott in his amendment, which is not an amendment.
Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. We've heard from Mr Cooper that Council has talked with the management of the shopping centre and not got anywhere. Surely this will be part of our Merrickville master plan, which is on the books now. It may not make any difference, it may be a few months, but surely it's going to be part of that, and would be better served to me to be part of it, not pulled out ad hoc. We talk about the buttons being pushed again, but I just wondered if the deputies have ever considered going to the press much quicker. Go to one of those current affairs program and plead your case, and they'll lap it up. So that's my advice.
Councillor Davis.
When we were elected to council, we undertook an oath to make decisions on behalf of this council. And
I don't think that's appropriate. You're attacking another member, right? The facts have already been given to you by the governance officer in relation to the stance that's been made.
No, I disagree. So in my view, when I was elected to council, I took an oath to represent my community.
And you have walked out.
I'm speaking to the motion. To represent my community. The notion that I wouldn't vote for a motion because of some reason or another is, in my view, a direct breach of the Act, particularly Section 59(1)(c). Section 59(1)(v). So whether I agree with Councillor Dawes' point, whether it's within caretaker period or not, I'll be staying to fulfil my oath and my obligation to this council as a decision maker and to my ward, whether I agree with the motion or not. That is still my responsibility.
Don't have anyone else here wishing to speak, so I shall go back to... No, Councillor Hubble?
Thank you, Worship. I will speak in favour of this motion. I wasn't sure where I was going to be, because I think there's a bit floating around with this, but I think it is a good action for us to be taking, and I thank the deputies for coming and representing their views. And there's one point I think is really important for us to consider, is that disability inclusion does not mean providing alternatives. It means changing the status quo so that the status quo is inclusive. And I think what we've got here it is private land, but what is being done on that private land, I think, is against the spirit of disability inclusion. And I look to the function of local government, and there are three points particularly that I wanted to highlight. One of the roles of local government is representing the interests of its community to the wider community, and other tiers of government is part of that. But secondly, providing for the welfare, well-being and interests of individuals and groups within its community. And I guess to a lesser extent, developing its community and resources in a socially just and sustainable manner. And while it's a very important point to note that this is private land, it is, I feel, within our scope and within our responsibility to advocate for what is essentially a public space owned by private enterprise. I think people would consider shopping centres as public spaces. And if there's something going on in a public space that isn't right, like we see here, then we have a role to advocate and assist that. So I support this motion. The timing issues notwithstanding, I think this is a very worthwhile thing to do. I think it could have come in a month or 2 months' time before the new council. It certainly could have, and it certainly could have come up a year ago, 2 years ago. This is not a new issue. But it is before us now, and for this and 2 more meetings at least, our responsibility is to go with what is put before us. So I'll be supporting this.
I have no one on the screen, so I'm going back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for your consideration, support and contribution to this matter tonight. I think for anyone nervous about the timing of this motion, as we do have an approaching election, I have been working on this matter, as the staff have said, with my community and the administration for over 12 to 18 months. It is council conducting its business, and as we've heard support for that too, on behalf of our community, make life better for them. It's a complex matter in terms of our jurisdiction, and sadly, as we've heard, there is no straightforward resolution. The Merrickville Master Plan project, as has been mentioned, will in future hopefully consider this very congested area. The shopping centre is a major part of this precinct, and it will be really important to see what can be achieved to have the shopping centre management on board to improve life and safety for the community. It's not council property, but as has been said, it is essentially a very public area, highly utilised. Thousands of people use this space every day. It's a busy commercial area, and I repeat, I think it's really self-evident that it's good business practice to enable as many customers as possible to access what you're selling safely and easily. So I seek your support for this, and that we can resolve to advocate so everyone can access this centre in a dignified and equitable manner. Thank you.
Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Through the reports, and thank you for your attendance. I'll now go through the reports. 11.1, is there anyone who wishes to withdraw that? No? Councillor Piggott, you wish to withdraw it, or do you wish to move?
I wish to withdraw.
Withdraw. Eastwood Community Centre, you wish to withdraw it?
Thank you.
Minutes of Brown Hill Creek and Keswick Creeks.
Oh, no.
Anyone like to move it? Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Seconded, Councillor, wait a minute, Councillor Davey, you had your hand up. Are you wishing to withdraw it?
No.
Okay, seconding. Okay, thank you.
sorry.
So all those in favour? Against? Carried. I won't look at that. I'll only look here and then I'll only won't get confused. Sorry about that. That one's done. Did I do those? Those in favour? No. Yeah. 11.4, minutes of the Eastern Regional Alliance Era Water Audit Committee. Anyone wish to withdraw that? Moving then, Councillor Davis, seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Lemon.
Moving.
Moving it, seconded by Councillor Piggott. Carried.
Moving. Moving.
Moving it, Councillor Piggott seconding. Minutes of the Eastern Waste Management Authority. Councillor Cornish, are you moving it? Seconded by, I seek a seconder. Councillor Lemon. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Confidential minutes of the Eastern Regional Alliance Era Water Special Board meeting. Moved by, or does someone wish to withdraw it? Councillor Hughes has moved it. Councillor Henschke has seconded it.
No, I wanted to withdraw it. So
Well, it got moved first. So seconded by, I'm seeking a seconder. Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Mayor's activity report. Councillor Turnbull. Seconded by Councillor Hughes. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Questions on notice is the next one, and that I believe has been supplied, the answer's been supplied to us prior to the meeting. Sorry, we've got to go back, forgot. We've got to go back to 11.1 and 11.2. So, Councillor Piggott, it's your...
Apologies for this, but I'd like to put an alternative motion, and I haven't sent it through ahead of time.
You just got booed.
First time in 12 years I've been booed.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay. First and last.
Yeah, maybe. The councillor receive a report prior to the end of February 2023 detailing a pathway, including timing, in brackets, including timing and required budget. To ensure all lapsed LMAs are discontinued. Lapsed LMAs. Are discontinued. And a method for managing remaining LMAs. And if I could just by pathway, I'm only after one, not more than one, so pathway, if I could. I'm looking straight at administration, so I'm keen to minimise the damage. And I do apologise for the lateness of that. I read this report, and I was the person who came up with the bright idea of writing to them all and see what we found, and I guess the results were less than, perhaps what I expected, I don't know, less than, perhaps it was Henry's. Oh, no wonder it didn't work. I think this is something we need to sort out. We've got 400 of these, and we get them sort of drip-fed one at a time and have to deal with them like that. And I know it is a big job, and I do appreciate what's been done previously, but I do feel that the council shouldn't have these things in a bottom drawer with the ability of any one of them jumping out at us, potentially. And from the report, I don't understand sort of why, how people can buy properties without knowing about them. On the face of it, we got 200 that said, took the trouble of responding and said they're compliant. They probably are. And the other 200 haven't. Look, we're not deciding to do anything more on this tonight, actually, apart from, I think the new council should look at this for what it is. It's, 400 agreements the council has made, many of them quite old, a lot of them probably no longer relevant, and I feel we should have a path of, if that's the case, get rid of them. However, it's not a decision for tonight. What I'm asking is that we don't, this report, the motion as it was written, the recommendation was to just, we got 200 responses back, let's do nothing more really, just deal with them as they come up. I don't think that's a satisfactory approach. I think these were put in for a reason at the time. Some of them will be current, some of them will be, some of them might be old and will still be, people have done the right thing. Doesn't mean that the next landowner will, if they sell the property. So I do think it's important enough issue to put resources into. But like I say, that's not what I'm advocating tonight. I'm advocating for a report that tells us what it does mean, what it does require, that the next council looks at, and if that next council decides to go the way of the recommendation and do nothing more, so be it. But I feel it is worth them looking at that for the matter that it is, and it is a matter of significance, I feel, and we should actually sort it out and not leave it in the bottom drawer.
Councillor Davis, you're seconding.
Thank you. I'll reserve my right.
Councillor Hughes.
I just have a question, and this is probably something I should have asked a few months ago when this came up. If I'm a landowner, is this on my title? How would I know I have an LMA? It should be on my title. So how do people not know? Okay. When I bought my house, I read the title. Yeah. No, I just wanted, I was like, is there another way?
Could we focus on questions and answers this way, please?
Just checking that there's not another way that we've missed, that, like, there's no...
Don't read the fine print when you're spending $2 million.
No. I was like, no,
Councillor Hughes.
I'm happy to...
Answer from here.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, might get Mr Cooper just to enlighten us on that one.
Through the Mayor, yes, that's absolutely correct.
A significant number of these either come to us, people asking to get rid of them, and it's been a bit of an issue, hasn't it, really? So if it's an opportunity to go through and actually go, well, these are no longer relevant or no longer compliant, the tree doesn't exist, and we remove them, then they're no longer in the database and we don't have to worry. But I think Councillor Pickett's right. We've just got things floating around in the bottom drawer. It's a little bit untidy. It would be nice to understand what would be required to tidy the drawers. So happy to support your motion.
Thank you, Worship. I'm hoping a variation might be accepted by the mover and seconder to tidy up the motion. I'd like it to. I'd just like it to read that Council 1 receives the report. A lot of work's gone into the report, and we haven't even received it. Receives the report 1, and 2 requests a report prior to. And I hope the mover and seconder might accept that.
I think that's a pretty fair variation if both of you approve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dawes, you're next.
Oh. Yes, I think I must have run over a cat today because I've, again, going to be a little bit negative here. I was against this original motion, Councillor Pickett, going back, you might remember. And the reason I was against it was because we didn't know and we're asking residents to respond. So I am not surprised that only 49% replied to that. And I'm wondering if we're just going over very old history here, because most of those that did reply didn't know, or it wasn't an issue anyhow. Over the past 2 years, under our new CEO, there's been a greater compliance to land management agreements, and the emphasis has been on that and to watch and make sure that they are complied with. I will support the I don't know what that means, but I will support the motion because it does give us, okay, what we should be doing for the future. But I refer to you on page 13 of what one particular person said, and I'm not surprised by what they said. What a complete waste of everyone's time and money. Well done, councillors, great job. And the reason why they said that, I feel sure, is that you don't know what you're doing by sending out the letter in the first place. But I've already made that point going back to whenever it was. But yeah, let's help the new council here look at managing the remaining LMAs. But I hope this doesn't mean a lot of work for the administration. And so my last bit is a question to administration. Is this motion or this amendment from Councillor Pickett going to create too much work for very little reward?
Through a minute, I'll answer the first part of the question and I'll decline to answer the second part of the question because it is a valid judgment. The first part is, I think the report's okay. We do have some insight now that we've gone through the first part of the process and have an understanding of the resource implications. So I'm quite comfortable that this won't be an onerous process.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's see. I've got lots of questions about this motion because when I've learnt here that land management agreements come up in the data sa.gov.au website, there's land management agreements all over South Australia. So it's not just the City of Burnside's bottom drawer stuff that, we've got to tidy up. This is a really big area for the Attorney General's Department. They have a data set of all these LMAs. As we've heard tonight, a copy of these individual agreements refer to the certificate of title, and it's all in the databases. It's a really seriously monitored and managed space. So I don't know why we really need to say we don't want this, because the intent of this motion is indicating that we discontinue our LMAs, and I'm not convinced that there's a business case to discontinue them. And certainly, it's not just the City of Burnside. Does this mean all other councils are going to discontinue LMAs? I mean, why are we doing this, really? Because a lot of LMAs all over the state. So my question is, to the administration, I've talked. Yeah. I can't ask a question, no. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you. Can the administration please advise the Chamber or confirm that, yes, there are LMAs in every other council across South Australia and that they are all hanging on to the LMAs, or is this some general trend for every council to get rid of LMAs? Are we leading the way, or are we following some direction? I'd just like that clarification. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, I think the lens you need to put over this is that this is about how the City of Burnside is going to manage its LMAs. This report is seeking to give guidance to an incoming council about the most appropriate way to manage our LMAs going forward. But that's what I'm going to consider when I put this together. I'm sure there are other LMAs across South Australia, but that's not our concern. We're concerned about the City of Burnside.
Councillor Day.
Thank you. I support this motion. Thank you, Councillor Piggott, and everyone who's contributed to drafting it. LMAs are really important. They've all been put there for a reason. We do need to keep track of them, register them, keep them under view, monitor them. and we haven't had a system in place to do that. So we've now got that. It's part of normal council business, so it's part of doing the administration of council and would be included in all of those costs. So I don't see that it is onerous. It's actually really important because it's about land management, and it's particularly usually about trees and saving trees, and usually significant trees and trees that are old and well established. So I'm always in support of land management agreements, and I support this review of the whole LMAs. Thanks.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, I think this is a good motion. I support it. I'm one of those strange people who thinks we should be policing our LMAs and doing annual inspections, because if you've only got a 3-year time frame to catch breaches, you've got to be out there looking at them. And to be honest, Burnside's not that big. Stick it on the smart tablet, saying you're driving past the street, go and have a look. Is the tree still there? I fail to see how it can be that hard. I mean, I'm sure we've all been traipsing up and down the streets of Burnside recently anyway, and it's just not that much of an effort, frankly. But I admit I'm a strange person. I think we should do things like inspect buildings to make sure people have actually built what they had the development approval to build. People seem to think that's a really weird idea, but I don't. So I'm going to support this motion, and I hope you will too.
Councillor Davis, you're going to use your seconding now?
No, I'd like to ask
Question.
a question.
Right.
Councillor Henschke seemed to suggest that this motion discontinues all the existing land management arrangements. Can you, through the administration, clarify what this motion would do to the lapsed or discontinued LMAs?
Through Madam Mayor, yes, I'm happy to give more clarification around the term discontinued. Mr. Cooper, could you enlighten us on that one, please?
Certainly through the Mayor, the issue here is whether the LMA still serves a purpose or has a purpose to serve. And what we suspect is that there will be many LMAs out there in the community that no longer serve a purpose, i.e. they will have lapsed in terms of the requirement. Maybe the tree, if it's a tree example, had been removed more than 3 years ago, so there is absolutely no point in having the LMA in place. So it's not about generally getting rid of all the LMAs. Where they have a use and it's remaining and it's valid, then we should actually have that continue. It's the clean-up, really. It's to make sure that our database of LMAs is current. We don't have LMAs that have expired unnecessarily on that database. And we have a process in place with the resources to manage the ongoing LMAs at whatever frequency council decides going forward.
So now, Councillor Davis, you'll need to speak. You don't wish to speak as a seconder, so therefore I shall go to Councillor Piggott.
Could I just ask a question? Sorry.
No, I've already moved on.
Thank you. Well, firstly, can I thank Mr. Cooper for that answer, because that was precisely what was intended. We will find a large amount of these 400 if we decide to do anything more, and like I say, we're not deciding that tonight. The next council gets to decide that off the back of the report if this motion gets up. But that's the way I see it happening, is that there will be perhaps a large number that have lapsed for all those reasons, and that will leave us with a smaller number, which then we can see how far we want to go down the Harvey Jones line in terms of compliance. And I think that puts us in a better position. I do accept it's not a small job, and that's why it does need to come back, and we do need to understand, or the council needs to understand, what it is going to cost and how quickly we can do it. I think this motion allows that information to be given to the council, and they can make the decision at the time. So I seek your support. Thanks.
I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We move to Councillor Davey, 11.2.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council approves the Eastwood Community Centre 2021-2022 funding acquittal. I delete 2 and move a new 2 to read, includes funding of $60,000 in the 2023-2024 budget. That's right.
Point of order. Can't do that.
Yeah, if I may, I might just get Karishma to talk us through this one. But it is about...
Is it about the money or...?
No, it's about not having the ability to commit council funds during a caretaker period. But I'll just get Karishma to talk us through that.
Thank you. Through the chair, that is correct. During caretaker period, we are not able to commit any unbudgeted money. The current year budget includes 60,000, but we do not have anything going forward. As such, we cannot do this. It cannot include any unbudgeted funds in the motion.
Although we may appreciate the sentiment involved, but it's not possible.
So how could I, if I could ask for guidance from the CEO, please, how could I keep open that funding be considered in that with deleting that money in the next budget cycle, please?
Just give me a moment, Madam Mayor.
Isn't that what they're saying, that for the future?
No, they're saying you...
Councillor Davey, while the CEO's just getting you some information on that, you might want to just think about reconsidering item 2 in case. Just keeping it in.
Okay.
In case.
Thank you. I don't want it to just be a grant. I want it to be more standalone, because that's what it was.
They can make a budget bid. There's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your patience, and councillors. My advice is that the issue of funding be avoided completely during caretaker. I'm sorry, but I don't think there's an avenue that we can safely consider what you're trying to achieve there during caretaker.
But it can come later.
You'll be re-elected. You'll be fine.
In that case, I'll withdraw. I do not want to move that, so someone else will have to move it.
Wish to move the motion at all?
No,
Right,
thank
Councillor
you.
Davis, well, wait a minute, I'll move to this. No, we didn't have a seconder. Okay, so Councillor Davis, you wish to move it?
Yeah, the officer's recommendation, and I won't debate. Thank you. The officer's recommendation.
Councillor Cornish, you wish to second and speak?
Yeah.
As
the
it is.
the officer's
recommendation as originally stated.
Yeah.
And you wishing to second?
Second,
Sure.
I'll reserve.
All right, I don't have anyone else wishing to speak at the moment. So it might be, Councillor Davey, you have?
Yes, while I don't actually want to move this motion, I think as we've got an ageing population, I think the Eastwood Community Centre has really established itself as a very worthwhile community group in the community, and with our ageing population, it deserves support for its fantastic programs, and I don't believe it should just depend on annual funding applications. I'd like to see it be given more support in each of our budgets.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for the administration. Just on the on number 2, I think I can see semicolons in the sentence there. I'm wondering whether the second semicolon is necessary. It's just the grammar. Applies for community funding, sponsorship and donation guidelines, semicolon, and requires a cost breakdown, semicolon, for future funding requests. I just don't understand, I can't read that clearly, the grammar.
Does the administration have any problem understanding?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I'm very clear about what the recommendation is implying.
Right, Councillor Henschke, do you have anything else to say? Or? You've got it. Then, Mr. Cowley, you finished too?
Question, could, through you, Madam Mayor, to the administration, could you just explain what is the impact of number 2 as to what they'll need to do next year compared to what they've done in the past? Could you explain that to me?
Yeah, through Madam Mayor, I might refer that to Mr Cooper.
Certainly, thank you. Through the Mayor, I've been having a number of conversations with the new director of the Eastwood Community Centre, Leanne.
Who is present in the chamber.
It's clear to both of us, and for the purposes of good governance, financial governance, at the moment, there isn't a framework or guidance from Council to Eastwood Community Centre in terms of what that funding can be used for. So in the past couple of years, we've received requests for funding, which gives broad categories of the items of spend. And then the financial reconciliation that we've gone through reconciles those financial statements to the grant and how that money's being used. What I guess this is asking for is Council in the future, when it considers future funding requests from Eastwood Community Centre, whether that's for each year or for a number of years, it would be useful for Council to give some thought to what that money should be spent on. And I'm quoting there the guidance for that we provide our community grants, which is quite specific in terms of those areas that we may wish or may not wish to support. And I think that's really important. It gives the Eastwood Community Centre some certainty in terms of what it can use that funding for, and also ticks the box in terms of our financial governance to our community members. So this doesn't actually do anything tonight, it just asks for future consideration, and this will be beyond the current year's funding, because that's already been agreed by Council. So it's forward-looking, and it's consideration for that at a point in time, perhaps when the next request is presented as part of the next budget process.
Thank you. Councillor Davey?
Oh, thank you. It's just a governance issue. Who actually wrote the report? It's got Director Community Development. Is that, because we were putting the names of our authors on reports, and some of them don't have the names.
That is, of course, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you. Can we reinstate the names of the authors of reports in the Council agenda, please? Is that possible?
Through Madam Mayor, we're actually going through looking at new agenda management software, and I'm not intending to put the name of the officer in the report. I think it's very clear who the Director of Community Development is. That information has been provided on many occasions, so I won't be putting it in the reports.
Councillor Piggott.
Can I just say, I totally disagree with that. I think people should be...
No, it's not appropriate for you to debate that.
So I need to move a motion.
It's not appropriate for you to debate that. Councillor Piggott, you have the right to speak.
And yeah, I'd just like to speak to the motion. The funding, in my time here, funding of Eastwood has been subject of debate quite a lot, actually. And the path that Mr. Cooper laid out going forward, I think, would actually help that, and would have helped in prior years to have a clear direction of what Burnside wanted out of it, and if that's something that Eastwood could provide for the funds they need, it sounds a very sensible way of going forward. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Councillor Jones.
Can I ask a question? Yeah. I believe we own the building, is that right? So supplementary to that, what do we pay for relating to the upkeep of the building?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll just take some advice from either Mr. Cooper or Mr. Harvey.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, yes, Council provides a lease of 5 years under its leasing policy to the Eastwood Community Centre. That's managed through the administration. There are certain requirements under that lease, but generally speaking, anything that is not Eastwood's fault is covered by us as the owner of the building. So that's the general rule that would apply, if that makes sense.
So it's general maintenance of the building?
Maintenance that we would be responsible for. It's our building, obviously, and there are things there that over time would require to be undertaken, and those are our responsibility.
As the owner of the building, they are the lessee.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Does that help, Mr. Jones, Councillor Jones? Okay. Did you wish to speak?
I'm happy to speak in favour of this motion. It just strikes me that as a matter of equity that there are council-owned and run community facilities where we would pay for heating and cooling and lighting and power and things like that. And it seems to me that that's something that we should say, well, why should we treat Eastwood any differently just because we've got some, good-spirited citizens who run the centre on the behalf of the community rather than staff having to run it. I mean, we're gaining hugely, I think, as a community from these public-spirited citizens. So I think we should certainly consider that there's a certain, hotel cost of running a building that we should say, well, that should be down to council. And then we could think about funding specific programs of benefit to people who live in Burnside.
I think that's a future council decision-making and discussion. Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I'm now patting a cat, right, so I want to support this motion. I've been a little bit aggro tonight, which is unusual. I'm sorry, Councillor Piggott, about that. The important part here, I remember when I went to my first Eastwood meeting, I think Councillor Lemon was there with me, and the question I asked was, how many of your people that you support come from the city of Burnside? And it's 59%, which I think is fantastic because we're right on the border. So I know we always got to get 10% from Unley and 10% from Mitcham, so I think that's a great figure. And also I note here is that they have a very tight budget, so that $60,000 has been very, very well spent. I notice the target market is fairly broad, but most of them are between 45 and 64, which does fit in with Councillor Piggott, which that's good. But part two is the key part here, because it didn't appear, as Christian would say, didn't appear in our first run of the budget. What this does is ensure that the Community Grants Committee, which Councillor Lemon and Councillor Davey were on with the Mayor, that we can look at what they are proposing in March rather than, did we forget to include them or not? So I think it's quite appropriate that we've got both number one and number two. I understand where Councillor Davey is coming in. Let's give them money now, but that is definitely against caretaker, if I can say that. So I'm in support.
Councillor Henschke.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I support this motion, but I just wanted to reflect that we need to be aware as a council of the different types of community centres and the models for community centres. As Councillor Jones was reflecting there, that there are council-run community centres. This one is not council-run, but the Department of Human Services funds position there, $91,000 in staffing. So we need to understand what we've got across the city and where the gaps are, whether we need more funding from the Health Department for other community centres, I don't know. So I just wanted to raise awareness that there are community centres, different types of community centres in our city and across South Australia. And they all have different offerings. Some might be similar to other centres, but we do have to understand what we've got across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no one else on the screen now, so it's Councillor Davis.
No, the motion's very straightforward and need not be debated.
Thank you. I think the debate was actually very good in that it raised a number of issues that are issues for the new council to consider in terms of longer term funding, in terms of supporting the community centre in a different way, and I think that is certainly something that the new council will need to consider after November. So I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you, and thank you for your patience, Leanne. Now we move to 13.1. Sorry, that should be number 13.2, the numbers on the the number on the agenda is incorrect. So I've just got to go to that one. Now, before we move to this motion, which is Councillor Davies, I need to make a statement about, although this is after legal advice, that although I understand the sentiment of the motion and it is intended, I will not be allowing item 1 of the motion, part 1 of the motion, item 1 of the motion, because under the provisions of the Local Government Act, Meeting Regulations, Section 12.7, it is determined as ultra vires, so it cannot be considered in tonight's debate. However, second part can.
Can I have an opportunity to amend that part 1 and remove at 1C the last and not approve their removal? So,
If I may just have a moment, Madam
because I didn't receive this legal advice, any legal advice. My amendment would be to say that the Council notes with concern the application for removal of 3 large trees legally designated as significant at 483 Glenburn Road, Hazelwood Park.
Councillor Davey, the answer is no.
Sorry?
It's not acceptable.
What, and not
Yes.
ask for their approval?
I've just taken governance advice.
And what are the
answer.
reasons for that, please?
So through Madam Mayor, the Mayor has made a ruling that item 1 in its totality is not being allowed. And
That's right.
Therefore,
Why?
And that's the advice I've had.
And the reasons are?
the reasons
have to
are
give reason.
under the provision of the Act.
The ultra vires reasons, I do not have to justify it.
But yes, I think you do, and you said it was based on legal advice, but I haven't seen any legal advice with respect. And I'm the mover of this motion that's been on the agenda for 5 days.
What does that mean exactly?
Madam Mayor, perhaps if I can help.
Yeah. I'll let you. This one here submits to. It's a section here. So the council notes with concern.
Yeah.
Application.
Just a couple moments, please.
Yep. Basically, we can't dictate to the planning authority. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm taking governance advice. It's my decision, finally.
Yeah, but I'm arguing with you.
No, there's no point in you arguing with me, okay?
No, but there is.
It's my decision, and there is no debate with my decision.
Unless your decision is ultra vires.
You might as well.
Cat's back, Mike.
It would be argued against what I had to say anyway. No, because we're waiting for advice, therefore this question can't be formally asked.
Oh, I miss you too, Lillian. You're such a calming influence on my life.
Right, on receipt of further advice, I can accept A and B without C. So 1A and 1B may remain, but C needs to be removed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to move in accordance with that recommendation. So could I read again my motion?
No, it's there for everyone to see. It's been printed. It's out in the public arena. You don't need to read it.
But I do want to add a C at 2 to become 2C. At the end to become 2C. The amenity tree valuation formula. So at C, 2C. Oh, why do they take so long? The amenity tree valuation formula, capital T, capital V, capital F, be included in the code for reference for valuation of trees as assets.
I can't include that.
So it's capital T and capital V. Tree valuation, they're capital T, capitals. So it's capital T. Jesus Christ. It's a proper.
It's allowed. It's allowed.
Did you hear what I said? That it be T, capital T, capital V and capital F. So I'll talk to it. I've moved for this to be considered as these 3 beautiful trees were the subject of considerable energy and action to protect them when there was a proposal for development of the site in 2013. Unfortunately, the land management agreement proposed for the site then by council and agreed by council resolution was not signed for some reason, possibly influenced by the failure to proceed with purchase of the adjacent road reserve by the owner. Council at the time, on the 8th of October 2013, unanimously agreed that the trees needed protection, and it is now that we're faced with a proposed development that they are again at risk. I've asked that the amenity tree valuation formula be used to determine the financial value of the trees. This is based on species, type and growth rate, condition, aesthetic value, environmental and locality values. The tree valuation formula was adopted formally by council resolution to be used to calculate the economic value of significant and large trees during development applications, and it is cited and adopted in council's Urban Tree Strategy of 2014-2025 on page 7. It is a method of placing a monetary value on trees by public authorities, developed by Burnley College of Horticulture, Melbourne, and widely used across Australia for matters relating to compensation and litigation, insurance purposes, and for policy and decision making. I'm in no way intending to try to influence the Burnside Planning Authority, but rather raising in our role as council under Section 7 of the Local Government Act, our responsibilities are to manage, develop, protect, restore, enhance and conserve the environment in an ecologically sustainable manner and to approve amenity. That's part of our duties. So I believe that what this motion proposes, and nothing more, and that's pretty straightforward. I thank the administration for their advice in terms of the expert panel and the submission to them. But I hope you'll support this request because it's a wonderful site. The trees are quite beautiful. I think they have been a little bit neglected, but I think it can be a development. There's perfect reason that it can be developed with pruning and retention of the trees. So hopefully you'll support this motion. Thank you.
Councillor Davis, you're seconding and
Yes.
you wish to speak now?
I don't wish to speak now.
Right, Councillor Lemon?
Oh, thank you. I have a question. The mover just said, you know, these trees will be good with pruning. If we're actually going to put in something to the planning and design code, actually let me ask differently. Do you think that these trees will still be around by the time we get something back from the planning and design code? By the time we get it there and a response? Do you think these trees will still be existing? Because I don't know what we're trying to achieve here. So if you can tell me what you think we're going to try and achieve, that would be really good.
Through Madam Mayor, I think the only way I can answer that question is I can't answer that question because I don't want to preempt the decision that might be made by our planners. So I don't know whether the trees will be there or not. Yeah. I'm not sure if that helps you out.
So do you wish to speak or just hold off for a while, Councillor Lemon, and I can move to someone else and come back to you?
Well, can I just ask
Yes, you certainly can.
No, mic's not working.
No, I can't because I've got brains.
You press the button. I'm on.
Snooze, you lose.
How many others are on?
I've got you written down. And then
Okay.
you sort of got Lemon,
Okay.
Cornish and Hughes.
I'm happy.
Thank you. Do you know if there's been an application to destroy these trees?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, yes, there is a current application, development application with Council for the removal of the trees.
Right, now I'll go to Councillor Cornish.
Just a question and, sorry, ignorance of the new Planning and Development Act and specifically regarding tree species, but I remember the Adelaide Oval got expanded because Moreton Bay figs weren't considered significant or regulated under the Act because they were an excluded species, in which case item 2 will do nothing for these trees because it only refers to regulated and significant trees, which these trees under the Act are not considered. And I just wondered if that is still the case.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll seek some advice from Mr Cooper on that one.
Through the Mayor, the Moreton Bay figs in this example are regulated because they're more than 15 metres away from a proposed dwelling.
Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, you're next.
I'm going to try my luck with 3 questions. I might roll them into 2. Can the administration please just step us through, so an application has been made, what is the assessment criteria that staff or whoever that assessor is will assess the removal of those trees against? And apologies, I should have asked before the meeting. Sorry? Yeah.
Through Madam Mayor, I refer that to Mr Cooper, but I'm a bit concerned that Council is going to try and start debating the merits of how we're going to go about making this decision.
What I'm trying to,
It's a
I guess what I'm
decision.
trying to establish is the criteria that's been assessed, because obviously that's the, I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see what Mr Cooper's...
Yeah.
Through the Mayor, there are a number of criteria under the Planning Act which will be referred to in any assessment of whether the trees can be removed. That would be any trees that are applied for through the removal through a development approval process. That could include, the health of the tree and a number of other factors. So generally what will happen is that the applicant will provide an arborist report in support of their application, and in such cases the council would procure its own independent arborist advice, and it's based on that arborist advice the decision will be made. There's no public consultation involved when they're just trees in this instance. So, and if you recall, the change in the Act means that council does not have any ability to provide any comment on these trees at all that will be considered by the planning authority. But there is a process, it's backed up by the arborist information, and it's their professional advice that will determine the future of the trees.
Can I add a follow-on from that then? So part 1B refers to using the tree valuation formula to calculate the value of each of these trees. I guess I'm just keen to understand what information is required, and is that something that could be done following the arborist report, and what we would then do with that information.
Through Madam Mayor, Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, yes, we could do a desktop valuation of those trees ourselves, but we can't actually do anything with it. It serves no purpose for the development application that's in front of council at the moment.
Okay. Can I try my luck with one more question?
No,
okay.
But I'm happy to come back to you later.
Okay.
The question may be answered by someone else, but we now have Councillor Jones.
I have a question, if I may. There was a report on the land management agreement from council administration in 2013 that referred to the landowner encroaching upon council's land. Has that encroachment been resolved, or are they still encroaching on our land?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, I'm not familiar with the encroachment or the outcome of that. I believe the report was for the purpose of proposing a sale of a strip of land to the owner, and part of that negotiation was to facilitate the agreement for a signed LMA for the protection of those trees. But the sale of the land didn't go through, and the LMA was not signed and is obviously not on the titles of the property. I'm afraid I don't have an update on whether there was an encroachment at the time. I'd have to take that on notice.
Right, Councillor Piggott.
Look, I can't support this motion. I feel that I can see where Councillor Davey was coming from. If C was valid and went through, then maybe that'd be a different thing. But we have most recently actually asked for a submission to Council Assessment Panel. But in that, as I understood it, we had a place at the table. As I understand, with this one we don't. We've got no mechanism under the rules to actually say anything to the Council Assessment Plan. So number one, and that's what number C would have done. That's not there. You take that away, then really it's only sort of us noting them and thinking they're valuable and stuff, and that's beyond a warm feeling, is not going to do anything beyond tonight, I don't think. In regard to the second one, hitting the expert panel with a tree issue is, yes, I'm certainly supportive of that. I'm probably not supportive, though, of, with all due respect, a motion on notice feeding that process. I think that is a process that really does need to be done by administration, come to council, and in fact, I'm not sure whether that's already been done. I should have asked this question before. There's no question that we'll be putting submissions into the expert panel if we haven't already, and I'd be surprised if they didn't talk about trees. I don't think here and now, based on a motion on notice though, I would necessarily accept those three things are the things to say. So from that point of view, absolutely, trees, no, we certainly don't want to lose them, but I don't think this motion does anything to that really we should support, so I will vote against it.
Councillor Hughes.
This probably follows on from what Councillor Piggott has just asked. I guess I was going to refer to part 2. It's probably a question that the staff wouldn't have an answer to, but I guess if these were the top 3 things, that if we were going to be putting a submission to the planning panel, whether they would be the things or whether they're things that are omitted. I guess if we're looking to put something to an expert panel, we would want to make sure that it covers off based on the staff's experience, things that are coming to council for approval, whether that would cover all of those or whether this is something that maybe we could, we should revisit through a motion, which I think Councillor Piggott touched on. So I guess that was my very long-winded third question.
If I may, Madam Mayor,
yep.
Just thinking about this reference to a submission to the expert panel. We haven't submitted one as yet, and it's important to note that we haven't been provided with hard and fast timelines for that submission. We've been given with a loose kind of six-month time frame. Our intention is that the council would be involved in that submission in some shape or form before that gets submitted.
And that would, of course, be the new council, unless there's something ready in the next
looking at
2 meetings.
Looking at the timelines now, I'd say the answer is yes.
Right. Councillor Hensch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question for the administration. The one, in reference to 1B, the council wishes to express support for the use of that tree valuation formula. Would the council engaged arborist do that calculation in their report that would then be tabled to the council assessment panel?
So through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's important to note that, as Councillor Piggott's articulated, with this resolution, there will be no report going anywhere. So yes, council staff could determine what that value is, but it will serve no purpose because this resolution it cannot form any particular action apart from council noting its sentiments.
Can I follow-up question clarify, please? So the way it's worded, 1B, that council notes with concern, it wishes to express their support for the use of the tree valuation formula. Is that use of the tree valuation formula by who? By whom? The arborist, consultant, by the planners, by whom?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think the answer to that question is in Councillor Davies' part C of part 2, where I think Councillor Davies is seeking to get it included as part of the amendments that come through. So my understanding is that when anything to do with trees is considered, it would enable a financial value to be put against that asset, is what I think that's... Would you correct, Councillor Davey? Yeah.
Okay.
Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit lost. I'm sorry. A couple of questions here. This will go to the council assessment panel. Never. It's a staff decision. Is that correct? Number one.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I might, if I can refer you, well, in essence, it's part C, which we're disallowing, but we're actually talking about the Burnside Planning Authority, which is our council staff.
Right.
So there's no cap involvement here. We are talking about the council planning authority.
The reason I asked that question is the second question is that CAP has, over the past 4 years, forget how many trees it is, but has been involved in the application for a removal of a significant or regulated tree. What's the reason why it can't happen this time?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll need Mr Cooper to give me a comment on that.
Through the Mayor, yes, Councillor Dawes, you're absolutely right. There have been some instances where the removal of a tree has been part of a submission that includes the development. So as a package, that goes to CAP. The other instance was when the tree was part of a local heritage. It was an avenue of trees in Tusmore, so it was a local heritage matter, and that was referred to CAP for that reason. But in general, the removal of significant regulated trees would not go to CAP. It's dealt with under the delegations under the Burnside Council Planning Authority.
Right, I have no one on the screen. Councillor Davis, you seconded. You wish to speak? Okay, I have now Councillor Jones.
I am going to speak in favour of this motion, and Councillor Lemon asks what the point of it is. And I think it's us to stand up and say, like our community wants, that we are opposed to the removal of trees on private land, the constant drip, drip, drip of them being cut down. Now, I could post my opposition to the removal of these trees on my Facebook page, and my mum would see it, but probably nobody else would. I could write a letter to the editor of the Advertiser expressing my opposition to the removal of these trees. And probably it wouldn't get published, it would just languish in a drawer somewhere. So what we can actually do as a council, those of us who are concerned about this, we can pass a motion, it binds the planning staff in no shape or form, but we can register our opposition, as is our constitutional right to do so, to the destruction of these trees. And I think we should stand up and say, we oppose this. And the council staff are completely at liberty to ignore us, but I think we should stand up for it. We might get some good publicity for it, that council's taking a stand, and other people in Burnside will see this. We'll follow the council's lead. We'll start protesting. You know, that's what perhaps they should have been doing at Merrickville. People should have been marching up and down with placards saying, build a ramp, shopping centre owner, this is a disgrace. Maybe people will start picketing outside this development site saying, save the trees. perhaps someone will go and glue themselves to a bulldozer. Not that I encourage civil disobedience, obviously, but, you know, that maybe people will stand up and be counted, and so I think that's why. That's why we're doing it, Councillor Lamont, and I hope you support the motion.
Councillor Dawes?
Another question for Mr Cooper. Now, I thought that they wanted to remove the trees to put in a development as a package. Now, are they separating it and saying we want the trees removed first, and if you agree, great, and then they're going to come with another development with a housing development or units? Is that what's happening? It's not as a package as what Mr Cooper said?
So, through Madam Mayor, I think you're correct, Councillor, but I'll get Mr Cooper to make sure of that.
Yes, through the Mayor. Councillor Davis, that's absolutely, Dawes, sorry, that's absolutely correct. They are separate applications. So we have only received the first, which is related to the removal of the trees. We have not received the development that's proposed thereafter as yet.
Okay, I'm going to support the motion for that reason, because if CAP can't be involved in this, then I think, as Councillor Jones just said, we need to make a stand.
Councillor Hughes.
I had a question and it's just lapsed.
I'll go on to Councillor Cornish,
Yeah,
and then I'll give you a chance to come back in. Right.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry, I presume that was you giving me the nod. I will be supporting the motion. I do remember this actually being brought to the Chamber back in 2013, and Councillor Polk at the time mentioning with Councillor Bills, I believe, how these trees were actually lined the driveway to the old homestead. So there's a lot of history regarding these trees in the local area. And I think they even went all the way through to Hazelwood Park from Glenburn Road. So, and that was a lot of the background for us trying to save them back then and get an LMA on them or for them. So I will be supporting them. Obviously, it's in the hands of the planning gods, and fingers crossed that they shine brightly down on these beautiful trees. So I will support the sentiment of the motion.
I understand, of course, that the property's been resold since that original purchase back in 2013. Right, now we have Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment and add 2D. Have I spoken? Okay, I'll have a question. May I have a question, please? And then may I have a question, please, Madam Mayor?
Yes, you can have another question.
A question, thank you. Question for the administration. In the submission to the expert panel, can the administration also request that we prohibit the slicing and dicing of development that enables trees to be first felled in an application, which we've heard from Councillor Dawes' experience, and then followed by a development application? So it's about, can we write in our submission that we prohibit such, what I call slicing and dicing of development to enable their objectives? Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, as I alluded to a few moments ago, we will be putting a submission together, but the council will be part of the formulation of that. So it'll be put together with the new council. So when we get together to discuss our submission, I'm more than happy for that thought to come forward and be part of the discussion.
Can someone do this tonight, just so it's not dropped off?
So
It can't be done tonight because it's not part of the motion, correct?
So through Madam Mayor, no, I'm happy for my team to capture the thought just off to the side, so we won't lose it. But I think it's important that when the council considers this submission, that it's considered holistically, and that the council is still comfortable, perhaps, with that thought to be included.
Councillor Piggott, you have a question as well.
I do, thank you. So just to clarify that, what you're saying is number 2 would be be rolled into the overall exercise of what we're going to put into the expert panel, that would then come back to, it wouldn't be a separate exercise under this motion. You would make sure this was covered off in the single submission to the expert panel. Is that what you're saying?
So, through Madam Mayor, yes. I think, just speaking openly, I think the way we're dealing with this tonight's a little bit clunky. But it will be included in the discussion we have with the council, and as this resolution stands, these points would be included in that submission, along with probably a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, thank you. Cheers.
Right, well, Councillor Davis, you seconded this motion. Do you wish to speak? Right. Then are you wishing to ask a question? Last chance, Councillor Hughes, because I'm going to go back to Councillor Davey who moved the motion, because I have no one else on the screen. All right. Councillor Davey, you wish to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions. The two purposes of this motion, just to make it absolutely clear, are one, it's my intention that we highlight the support for the existing trees. We're not doing anything else. I don't intend that we interfere with the role of our planning authority. And two, very importantly, so that's about the now, for the future, that we provide within our submission to the expert panel in the future for the state government to consider our concern about significant trees. So, as I say again, I believe that we have a responsibility as councillors in our duties under the Local Government Act to manage, protect, restore, enhance and conserve the environment in an ecologically sustainable manner, and to improve our amenity. And that's what I'm doing in terms of raising these issues. So raising our concern about the value of these particular trees is, I believe, within those responsibilities. On behalf of our community, which, as we all know, and we all get lobbied about constantly, is opposed to the constant removal of our old, large, significant and regulated trees. To have part two of the motion included as part of our submission, along with all the other matters, which, as the CEO has alluded to, the administration is gathering together and compiling to put forward. And these include the pruning definition for regulated and significant trees, which we have at A, reducing the species at B, and then I think the other important thing is to cover the value of these trees, because we have no qualms about determining that when we have a building or a car or something like that, but we never apply it to the value of trees. And these trees would be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's asking for the state government to include in their code some sort of process, the tree valuation formula, the amenity tree valuation formula, or something better. This is widely used in Melbourne and up the East Coast, to determine and look at the size, species type, growth rate, aesthetic value, heritage values, environment and locality values of these old trees when they're being considered. So the government needs to include this in their code for us to consider. It's just been totally forgotten. So thank you very much for your consideration and input. I hope you'll support this motion tonight. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Carried.
No. I have a question without notice.
I believe you have a question, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through Your Worship, may I have an update from the administration in relation to progress with White Rock Quarry and their progress with their mine operation plan?
Certainly. Through Madam Mayor, I might refer that to Mr. Harvey.
A quick look on the Department of Energy and Mining site advises that the White Rock Quarry mine operation plan, the MOP, has had an extension of time. So it's now been granted an extension of time to the 31st of March 2023 to supply that MOP.
Good question to ask. All right, I think that, unless there's anyone else who has any other business, then that is the close of the meeting at 9:14 p.m. And thank you everyone for your attendance, both staff and council members.